Welcome everyone. Before we get started at today's news conference, I'd like to make an acknowledgement to the Atlanta Video Network, our local media, as well as our community members here in the city of Atlanta who've come out to support today's Advocacy America news conference. My name is Carrie Williams and I'm the president of Advocacy America. And Advocacy America is here today because on this last day of the national presidential primaries in the 2016 election cycle, we need to bring awareness to a historical opportunity that many may not even be aware of. It is the first time in the history of the state of Georgia that a third-party candidate, presidential candidate, will have an actual viable chance of having their name be on the ballot in November. And this comes out of a recent judicial ruling. In the state of Georgia, the third-party presidential candidate with that opportunity is Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein. As many of you are aware, Advocacy America from its very beginnings has focused its effort on urban leaders being involved in the environmental movement in America, and we call that ULEMA. We've held green gatherings to really focus on the imperative that urban leaders become involved in the environmental movement in America, but also particularly in the urban waters movement that's coming across our country. Our last green gathering was held at the state capitol's Liberty Plaza, and there were many prominent speakers, musicians, and artists all sending a message across the city of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, the Southeast region, and our country about we need to get involved. We can no longer take our air, our waterways, our land, particularly our food. We can't take it for granted any longer. Flint, Michigan is a painful reminder of that for all of us. ULEMA has been building the capacity of urban leaders to deal with this very core human issue, human existence issue in America's urban centers. And for disadvantaged communities, urban leaders must deal with the worst environmental impact, and sometimes even the worst economic impact as well. Right now, in the city of Atlanta, we have an opportunity, a real opportunity in this moment of history to take on this challenge powerfully in the Proctor Creek watershed basin. Today's news conference has us right here near the banks of Proctor Creek, right at Metro Atlanta's Rapid Transit Authority's Bankhead Station on what is called the Green Line, once known as the Proctor Creek Line, and which may again one day soon be called that. We're standing in an area that's known as the Donnelly-Hallowell Parkway Small Business Corridor, which, according to the City of Atlanta's long-range planning, it will undergo major redevelopment over the next 5 to 10 years. And that could change who can actually afford to live here in the Proctor Creek watershed basin. Advocacy America is here today to highlight a connection between the historic challenge of economic inclusion in this type of environmental restoration that will be happening with Proctor Creek right here in Atlanta where we stand, and this historic opportunity for a third-party candidate, Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein, to have her name on the ballot in front of Georgia's voters in the voting booths this Tuesday, November 8th of 2016, not too many months away from now. To highlight that connection and really deliver a call for action, which is the intention of our news conference today, I've asked Green Party activists and now mayoral candidate here in the city of Atlanta, Al Bartel, to really deliver that communication for the American public and for the media. And just as a small way of introduction, Mr. Bartel is a certified mediator in the area of public policy management. He's been deeply involved in the initial community engagement efforts of the Proctor Creek Urban Waters Partnership, federal partnership. He's made numerous presentations to the Proctor Creek watershed neighborhood planning units as well as neighborhood associations. He's facilitated over 20 roundtable discussions and development sessions in Metro Atlanta over the last 2 years towards this end. He's known to be an unwavering advocate for neighborhood leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, and small business leaders to be included in the public policy process, the decision-making process of government, whether it's local, county, state, or national, to the same degree as lobbyists, special interest groups, corporations, and particularly global development interests here in the Atlanta metropolitan region and in our southeast region. Please welcome Mr. Al Bartel.
Today's press conference demonstrates the need for a clarion call. And that clarion call is to the neighborhood, community, faith, and small business leaders to get involved in an effort to prevent destructive gentrification in the city of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and the southeast region of the nation. So we're clear that the response that we've gotten from the Georgia Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein, and the National Green Party is on time, on point, and deliverable that we must embrace. All over America, communities are confronted with destructive gentrification. As a community, we point out that we're fine with growth and development, but that growth and development has to include us. It is necessary that we organize and have our voices be heard. One of the opportunities to have our voices be heard is because a judge declared that a third-party candidate in Georgia meeting the requirement of 54,000 signatures was a destructive public policy and could no longer be tolerated in Georgia. That destructive public policy squelched the voice of neighborhoods all over this state. So the judge issued an order and a decree that it would no longer be 54,000 signatures, but it will only be 7,500. These 7,500 signatures that we can galvanize is a demonstration that the voice of community will have spoken as a reference point for decreasing destructive gentrification here in Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and the southeast region of the nation. So as neighborhood leaders, we're clear that by having an independent candidate, an independent voice, such as Jill Stein, Green Party candidate, will give the community an opportunity to plan, develop, organize, and analyze public policy and community engagement. The critical issue of gentrification is more paramount than ever. The multi-billion-dollar sports industry have designated Atlanta as a global destination. The multi-billion-dollar hospitality industry, which is global in its perspective, have designated Atlanta as a point of destination. The question we in community have is, are we included in that future? Currently, we have not seen any evidence that our homes will get the funds to be revitalized. We've not seen any evidence that our churches will get the funds to sustain themselves. We've not seen any evidence that our nonprofit organizations who do programs in our communities will be funded. And we've not seen any evidence that our small businesses will survive the massive multi-billion-dollar economy that's coming to our city. So we've reached out to the national leadership. The national leadership that has reached back to us is the Georgia Green Party and Green Party presidential candidate, Jill Stein. So we will have a series of planning sessions, starting with a conference call tomorrow night to roll out the work effort to get these 7,500 signatures. We have approximately 40 days left to accomplish this objective. And that is the reason why we're holding this press conference this morning to issue the clarion call that once and for all, community will take a stand against destructive gentrification in the city of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and the southeast region of the United States of America.
Question, Rick Clear, Atlanta Video Network. A few months ago, Jill Stein paid a visit to Atlanta.
Right.
And she's rather a remarkable person.
She is indeed.
Individually, but she talked a lot about Atlanta or Georgia and the
Yes.
difficulty in getting on the ballot. So
Yes.
this is really quite remarkable, isn't it?
It is
that this
quite.
has been changed.
It is quite remarkable that it's been changed. We've been fighting for ballot access for decades. And the dominant party has been the Democratic Party at times and the Republican Party at times. Neither one of them would make a conscious effort to provide public policy to decrease the number of signatures. So when the court has stepped in and done this, we asked that the court do it for all statewide elections and all congressional elections and local. They did not. They only chose to do it with the presidential election. We think that'll set a precedent. 54,000 signatures was a lot of signatures. Nobody had ever done that. And to decrease that number to 7,500 is monumental. And it shows that the bench, the judicial bench, is clear about the imbalance that's currently exists in our nation. Georgia is the most difficult state in the nation, and we're absolutely ecstatic that the bench has decided to step in and make this move.
I'd like to add on to what Ms. Bartel just communicated, and that is that in some of her interviews, presidential candidate Jill Stein mentioned that, you know, being strategic about the states where her name gets to be on the ballot, it doesn't require a whole lot of states, and she can get 85% of the American citizenry to see her name on the ballot. And that's a tremendous amount of votes that could be cast when people see her name. So this effort in Georgia can really be that kind of a rally, if you will, for everyone across the nation. And she's not far from reaching that number of states having her name on the ballot.
Okay, very good. And you mentioned also that, well, actually, I believe that if there was ever a presidential election that people would wish to have a third-party candidate on the ballot, this is the one coming up. But again, this is kind of time sensitive. You already mentioned, but let's refocus on that.
Sure.
You have just a short number of days to get 7,500 signatures.
Yes.
And this is in the planning stages right now.
Yes.
How will people know more about it? How will they find out where I can sign? You know, where I can, how's that all going to happen?
Well, one of the advantages that we have is the work that Advocacy America has already been doing. So Advocacy America is in touch with hundreds of neighborhood, community, faith, and small business leaders. We've not asked them to participate in a ballot access initiative, but those people are available. They've communicated that they are willing and they're ready to key up immediately. So we feel good that we have the capacity to do it. It's always been there, but the 54,000 signature challenge just got people to see there was necessarily no need in even trying. But with the leadership of Jill Stein being involved in the effort, and now that it's only 7,500, if we considered all the way across Georgia, not just in Metro Atlanta, that's only 75 signatures for each county. And so we can do that in metropolitan Atlanta alone over the next 30 days. It's not as much of a challenge as it is as an opportunity, and we're fired up about the opportunity. But the catalyst in all this has been the Advocacy America contacts and the network that's already in place.
And the reason why Advocacy America is even getting involved at this point is because we want to keep the point of it all in front of us, all of us. We can no longer take for granted our air, our water, our land, our food. When will we take the steps we have to take, we know there are to take, to ensure we're going to stay on this planet? And there's a lot more to it than that, but Advocacy America is specifically committed and proactive in this area of the environmental movement in America. And thank you, Rick, for Atlanta Video Network's courage in having this go forward into the country.